You've probably been involved with dozens of these. There's a pileup somewhere on the highway. People are injured. Maybe some are trapped. Maybe worse. It's too soon to know. The adrenaline pumps and everyone is eager to get involved. It's a large part of why you joined the service in the first place. You've trained, you're ready, and you want to help. It's all very familiar. Problem is, it doesn't always wind up with a happy ending, with someone patting everybody on the back saying, "Good job." Because every year, highway incidents like this set the stage for a secondary incident, a nightmare in which some firefighter or police officer or EMS provider is suddenly struck and killed by traffic trying to maneuver around the accident scene. Instead of being a part of the solution, emergency service personnel suddenly are part of the problem and maybe a statistic. This is ordinarily the point where you begin to tune out. No problem, it can't happen here, it won't happen to me, we're careful, we do it right. Anyway, it's always the other guy. But consider this, for every other person in the world, you are the other guy. I know, you're still not convinced. So let me introduce you to a few folks who used to hold that same sense of being invincible until nonchalance turned into tragedy.
The story, as I've told it many times, involved a routine accident response on a rainy afternoon where there was a fairly significant downpour that came through the area. And as a result, a car had spun off the turnpike going in the westbound lanes. And a passerby had called 911 and reported that there had been an accident on the Pennsylvania Turnpike just west of the Downingtown interchange.
Lady she had spun out in the water, down over a ravine, or in a little ditch, apparently broke her ankle. It was raining, so I didn't even get out of the truck. I sat in my truck, and there was a guy with me. He went over, verified the information, and then I radioed, giving the ambulance and stuff instructions what to do.
10 minutes after they arrived on the scene, there was some dialogue on the radio, communications back and forth between the assistant chief, telling the rescue truck to proceed in and assist the ambulance and EMS with loading the patient in the back of the ambulance.
As we were putting her in the back of the truck, the fire company was assisting us lifting the litter into the truck. Next thing I remember is hearing a tractor trailer, which I found out later, that was sliding across the traffic lanes of the turnpike.
I turned over my shoulder, and all I can remember is seeing a very large white truck coming at us.
I knew the truck was going to hit me, and I knew there was nothing I could do except try to get out of the driver's seat and get as far away as I could.
I yelled for everybody to get out of the way, and I went around the side of the ambulance to grab my partner that day, and I threw him out of the way. Next thing I remember is getting up off the ground and calling for help.
I heard over the radio the driver of the ambulance of EMS say that there was an accident and that he needed additional rescue and EMS personnel.
They knew that when I yelled across the radio that, things went sour real quick, and they came from all ends of the county.
When I pulled up, I saw a tractor trailer on its side, and Assistant Chief Steve Sen's vehicle, personal vehicle, had been run over by the tractor trailer. Tire marks right over the driver's door.
It was total chaos. There were bodies laying all over. I saw guys laying there bleeding, guys just standing there stunned that were injured.
Every firefighter that I knew was laying on the ground.
And it just registered that this is a lot more trouble than what I ever expected.
I remember looking up and I saw them doing CPR on Dave, and I asked who it was. And they said, "Good."
David died in the accident. Dave, Good.
Altogether, there were 8 firefighters and 2 EMTs involved in the Lionville incident. 1 fatality, 9 serious injuries, a wife was left a widow, the children were left without a father. And none of the people who knew and loved Dave Good will ever be quite the same again. And stories like that of Dave Good and the Lionville Fire Company are not as rare as we might believe. Nearly every year, 5 firefighters lose their lives in secondary highway incidents. 20 law enforcement officers suffer the same fate, and several EMTs are lost. That's an emergency responder life that is lost every other week on the highways, but outside the vehicle. And hundreds of others are injured. The situation has become so critical that James Joyce, the commissioner of the Chicago Fire Department, made the statement recently that firefighters responding to calls need to operate as if someone is trying to run them over. And it's not just firefighters who are responding. We've already mentioned emergency medical service personnel and law enforcement groups. But there are others who converge at the incident as well. Groups like transportation agencies, towing and recovery service providers, members of the media and other information service providers, sometimes coroners and medical examiners, as well as authorities and contractors focused on cleaning up and disposing of hazardous materials. When the call comes in, they all set out for a particular destination that's already been the site for an accident. Meanwhile, the traffic keeps on flowing, but now congested by limited passage, the gawking of the curious, and the rage of the impatient. That adds up to one very dangerous situation. Okay, secondary highway incidents pose a very real threat to everyone who responds. So the question becomes, what can we do about it? You don't have to be a Boy Scout to be guided by the 2 simple words, be prepared. With that in mind, we have put together an outline of preparedness we call the 10 cones of highway incident safety. Here's the first cone. There is no substitute for training. Training is at the core of everything we do successfully. There's no magic. You listen, you learn, you do. And the more you pick up from the experience, the more experienced you become. Earlier, we heard from Jack Sullivan. Jack is the Director of Training for the Emergency Responder Safety Institute and is known around the country for his work in identifying best practices in highway incident management. Jack conducts training seminars that focus on the considerations that are important in developing your own incident management procedures. It's a great resource, and it could save lives. If you want to be safe, abide by the first cone. There is no substitute for training. Now, the second cone. Multi-agency coordination and communication are a must. One way to look at any highway incident is that the orderly flow of life and traffic are disrupted, and it is the task of responders to administer, treat the injured, and then restore order as quickly and safely as possible. With so many responders converging at once, orchestration and coordination are critical. A unified incident command is essential. The details of such a command and corresponding SOPs should be developed jointly by all agencies and organizations that play a part in highway incidents. And once such a command and SOPs are established, ongoing communication, review, and refinement are indispensable. Coordination and communication are a must. The third cone. Limit your exposure. Limit your time. It may be obvious, but the more equipment and personnel you have responding, the greater the exposure to some secondary accident. Make sure you have the vehicles, equipment, apparatus, and crew you need. But keep those numbers to the necessary minimum. The same consideration applies to the time at the scene. The math is simple. Your exposure is greater in 4 hours than it would be in 2 hours. Work as quickly as is prudent and safe, and then clear up the crews as soon as possible. Limit your exposure. Limit your time. Fourth cone. Give traffic plenty of warning. In a perfect world, all traffic could be diverted until some incident has been cleared. Managing traffic would be easy if there just were no cars and trucks. In the real world, delays cause stress. Everybody's in a hurry, and tempers are quick to stir. 5 years ago, the phrase road rage wasn't ever known. Now, it's become a part of our daily vocabulary. Advance warning can help. You know the exercise: arrow boards, flares, cones, police cars, detours, and alternative routes, among others. Variable message signs, whether fixed or portable, have also proven to be effective devices to communicate traffic and incident information on nearly a real-time basis. The point is, use whatever means are available to give traffic plenty of warning. Okay, the fifth cone. Protect the scene with apparatus. You may not think of your vehicles or apparatus as a protective shield between you and the regular traffic flow, but it can be just that. It's always better to lose equipment than it is to lose lives. Properly positioned, the equipment offers tons of fortification around the response to a highway incident. You can safeguard the scene and safeguard the crew with just a little forethought about how the scene should be protected. For instance, you should always arrange the apparatus assuming that it's going to be struck. That means the equipment should be parked at an angle and with front wheels turned in such a way that any subsequent collision is less likely to impact the responders to the initial incident. Help create a safer zone of response and protect the scene with apparatus. The sixth cone. Always work away from the traffic. This cone is a little more than an echo of what you heard so often when you were a kid. Don't play in the traffic. In all fairness, no one is playing when they respond to a highway incident, but sometimes the focus is so great on saving others that we fail to safeguard ourselves. The conversations, the discussions, the evaluations, they can all generally be done much more safely away from the traffic. Think about where you are. Don't be a target. And special attention must be given to your proximity to the traffic flow before you hop out of a vehicle or off the apparatus. After all, you've responded to help, but you'll be helping no one if you are the victim in a secondary incident. Always work away from the traffic. The seventh cone. Be prepared to shut down the roadway. This is a cone that is rarely popular with law enforcement or the public at large, but it has to be held as an option. Closing a roadway clearly eliminates the possibility of a secondary incident, but there are downsides that have to be considered. For instance, closing a road could cause a domino effect in which other highways are forced to take on dangerous volumes of traffic. Then there's the concern about detours taking the flow of cars and trucks through residential areas, areas of low bridges, or past schools, or by hospitals, where the potential threat may be greater than the inconvenience at the location of the initial incident. With that in mind, many communities around the country have pre-planned and marked well-scouted detour routes as contingencies for just such occurrences. Anticipate the possibilities and be prepared to shut down the roadway. The eighth cone. Be seen and not hurt. There used to be a presumption that the more lights, the better. But we've all become a bit more enlightened than that over time. There's evidence that a spectacle of flashing multicolored lights can be blinding to safe drivers and a deadly attraction to those impaired by drugs, alcohol, or sleepiness. Another problem inherent in an abundance of brightly flashing lights is that it tends to emphasize the location of apparatus and might obscure the presence of emergency responders. The recommended alternative is to reduce the amount of emergency lights with greater prominence given to the use of signboards, arrow boards, arrow sticks, and reflective markings on all apparatus. Two other suggestions. If possible, provide illumination for the entire incident scene and recognize that the presence of police vehicles tends to slow down traffic effectively. Clearly, we all have the same goal, and that is that you be seen and not hurt. That leads very naturally to the ninth cone. Dress for the occasion. You should never be forced to choose among protective, reflective, or comfortable clothing. If your structural gear doesn't offer high visibility, then get reflective and fluorescent vests. Just as important than getting the right gear is wearing the right gear. No excuses, and don't forget to thank the officers that make you wear them. The only thing they're guilty of is wanting to keep you alive. The eighth and ninth cone go hand in hand. Be seen and not hurt, and always dress for the occasion. The 10th cone is the enforcer for all the other 9. Accountability matters. It's all about responsibility. As long as each person takes the safety of the entire organization seriously, there's a real chance that secondary incidents can be eliminated. Take care of yourself, look out for others, keep your eyes open, and don't do anything dangerous. Consider assigning one individual the role of safety officer to monitor every highway scene. Someone explicitly responsible for properly staged and managed scenes. Someone who serves as the eyes and ears and enforcer of proper highway incident management. These are the 10 cones of highway incident safety. 10 cones that can make a difference in preventing injuries and saving lives.
I don't think a day goes by where I don't read a story somewhere across the country that a fireman, a cop, EMT, somebody just standing on the side of the road gets hit by a vehicle.
We lost a lot of firefighters because of this accident. And it certainly did hurt the fire company. And it scarred all of us for life.
I have a picture of my 2 boys hanging by my gear now in the company I run with now. And every time I grab my gear on and I make sure I touch their picture one more time.
It changed our lives. You know, in some points it ruined our lives.
Watch your back, guys. They're there to hit you. Just watch your backs. Watch each other. Don't let it happen to you.